And we have 2 interactive sessions. So we have a session after the first input to ask you on energy poverty coping strategies. We work with Mentimeter, and also here's a QR code as a link, and the code will be shared in the link. And if you have any questions here, we get support from Danai on Mentimeter. After all the inputs, so we have a very interesting and experienced panel. We have a Q&A session, and here we also work with Mentimeter, and it gives you the opportunity as participant to vote, you ask your questions and to vote your questions. And as mentioned, if you're struggling, please contact Danai. Okay, let's start. My name is Katharina Habersbrunner. I work for WECF, Women Engage for Common Future. It's an international NGO. We work a lot on climate and gender justice and just energy transition. We are partner at the Horizon 2020 project Empower Med, where we work on concrete activities and policy recommendations to face energy poverty, including summer energy poverty. I'm also a board member of Bündnis Bürgerenergie, that is an umbrella organization of energy communities in Germany, where we have energy poverty on the agenda and where we plan and establish energy communities and developing concepts to face energy poverty on a community level. So that's a frame, and our topic is summer energy poverty. Now we are in September, the winter is coming in Europe. The energy prices are skyrocketing, and we see a very high inflation, and we know that the very high energy costs are hitting vulnerable households the hardest. And it's very important to undertake short and long-term measures and policies for a fair energy market and for fair energy prices and overall structures, putting the effort on the people and on the planet and not on maximizing profits, so to be able to cope the next winters, so the next winter, but of course also the next summers. Because what do we know about energy poverty? So we know it is still a less researched subject. It is important due to rising temperatures and increasing heat waves. So this summer 2020, we saw and we experienced from June to August very high temperatures, persistent heat waves in all parts of Europe, causing evacuations and heat-related deaths. The highest temperature, I just checked, it was 47 degrees in Portugal in July. And when talking about energy poverty, the ability to cool your house and to have adequate circumstances also in the summertime is often not taken into consideration. And the first thought we have is mostly winter energy poverty. Even the issue is really rising and it's becoming more and more serious. And as mentioned, summer energy poverty disproportionately hits the most vulnerable people, as they tend to live in the most inadequate homes, if they have homes, and have the least access to cooling and anyhow resources like funding, budget, information, strategies to cope with summer energy poverty. And it seems, or we have data that summer energy poverty is a next issue of inequality. So how do we have to prepare our cities, our places for heat waves, and to prepare the people to have sustainable and long-term structures in place? Because we know that over 100 million people cannot keep their homes comfortably cool in summer. And so it's so important to put more attention on the issue of summer energy poverty in research, in policy making, in the projects, to be aware of this very crucial topic. It means it's very important to understand summer energy poverty and to implement actions and policy accordingly. So in our session today, we talk about the different dimensions of summer energy poverty, so social, technical, building, cultural, health, etc. aspects, and that summer energy poverty is an outcome of climate change and how vulnerable people are affected. Approaches from different projects local actions, recommendations from policy experts, from EU projects will give an overview on different levels. And also in the context of the European Green Deal, meaning leaving no one behind, and also addressing, of course, the economic targets, but overall the ecological and the social targets and objectives, what we have to fulfill and what is our challenge. And as mentioned, after our inputs, we have a Q&A session, and I invite you, dear participants, so to include your questions in the Mentimeter, where we share the link later on. I'm very happy to discuss this relevant topic today with very experienced panelists, and I show you very quickly here the overview of our experienced panelists. So with Stefan Buczarowski, Marina Varvesi, Carmen Sanchez Govera, Victoria Pellicer-Cifres, and Julien Schubert, we will present very different perspectives on the topic on energy poverty from policy level, from project level, and from different action levels. And so here I stop sharing the screen, and I will start to introduce our first speaker. I will also always introduce a speaker directly before your input. So I'm happy to welcome and to introduce Stefan Buczarowski. Stefan is a professor on human geography at the University of Manchester, and he is an associate of the Institute of the European Energy and Climate Policy. And so he did a lot of publications, and he is an internationally leading expert in energy poverty and sustainability policy, with research and policy interests at the intersection of energy geographies, so urban inequality and sustainability science. So also dimensions which need to be interlinked and considered when talking about energy poverty and summer energy poverty. So it means he interlinks social justice implications of system change in the energy sector. So Stefan, we are looking forward to an input on summer energy poverty, unpacking the air nexus, the air energy nexus. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that really kind introduction, and also thank you for everyone for attending here today. I'm delighted to see so many people attending at what is, I feel, a very important issue. So I will briefly give some comments today that will hopefully get us discussing this extremely hot issue, no pun intended, an issue that's not going away really, even despite this particular season we're in. Maybe it's a moment now to start thinking about what happens next summer. I will briefly share my slides, if that's okay. Hopefully you can see them. So this work that I'm doing is based on, I specifically referenced the NPOR project, which is about private rented tenants, a group that is particularly affected by energy poverty and where some of the energy efficiency upgrades are very difficult. And NPOR is a Horizon Europe funded project led by the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, which I'm also associated independently. So partly I will be representing some insights from this project, but also from a range of other sources of knowledge on this issue. I want to talk about a number of things today. So that's just the NPOR project. Another project that I should say has inspired this work is Poverty, which is funded by Interreg, where we've been exchanging best practices on energy poverty alleviation across Europe at the regional level. So there's sort of several points I want to raise. I want to talk about what space cooling means and what social justice means in the context of energy poverty, particularly the lack of data recognition, lack of recognition of vulnerable groups, but the lack of data more generally, something that we've been struggling with as we create this European Energy Poverty Dashboard, which is stemming from NPOR. I want to talk briefly also around the different dimensions of space cooling in relation to energy poverty, how we need to distinguish between short-term shocks and long-term stresses on populations, such as the heat waves that we saw this last summer can be interpreted as shocks because they tend to go away and they tend to be forgotten. But in fact, we are talking about a much longer stress on the system that's building up as a result of climate change. And really what we need to be developing is solutions both for short-term shocks, but also long-term stresses. And we are maybe getting better at the first, but certainly not very good at the second. And I'll be presenting also some insights from a paper that co-written with Caitlin Robinson, which is called Injustices at the Air Energy Nexus. That's a paper that's I just submitted the proofs for, so it should be coming out within the next few weeks. And it's a paper that basically positions this form of inequality primarily in relation to climate justice and air circulation, issues that we feel are of primary importance here. This is just a graph. It's slightly out of date. There are more recent graphs, but I just want to show you something, which is the rise of cooling degree days across Europe, and how this is the EU 28, so also including previously the UK. Just from 81 to 2014, you can see the upward trend constantly going up in this whole period. And when we look at how this is distributed geographically, we start to see some interesting patterns. So we know that, and this is being repeated now more recently, some of the more recent analyses, but we sort of know that if we look at the Mediterranean, that those regions, particularly places like Greece, parts of Spain, Italy, we know that they're already vulnerable to summertime energy poverty. But what we're also seeing really is just the expansion of cooling degree days across the whole of Europe. And again, this is slightly out of date because if you look at some of the scenarios that are more recent, we are in fact looking at need for cooling all the way to the north of England. And just in the recent heat wave this summer, that was the case, not just England, Finland, Sweden, Norway. So it's really the whole of Europe. And in other research that I've done previously, we found that, for example, we were looking at the north of Poland, and we found that just a slightly smaller number of people in the north of Poland had issues with summer cooling, as did with winter heating. So in fact, even places where you wouldn't expect it, even places like the north of Poland already had issues several years ago with people reporting lots of challenges around space cooling. And now that issue of hot homes in summer has really started to capture the public imagination. It's really expanded across Europe. And of course, it has a strong social justice dimension, because we know that people who live in poor quality housing, who lack incomes, who are vulnerable by virtue of their energy needs and so on, are most affected by this. And that includes also pensioners, people with children, and so on. And we also know that people in cities are particularly vulnerable, and where this also interacts with the urban heat island phenomenon. And the one thing that I also want to really emphasize here, and I hope we get to have a discussion about this, is that this is something that is beyond technology. So technology won't save us. Technology is a big part of the equation. So of course we need cooling technologies, but this is an issue of governance, of policy, of social relations, of urban and planning and management. So much more complex challenges around the whole regulation of urban life in particular, not just adding more technologies to people. And we know this from how heat has been dealt with, particularly in cities. We recognize now, we know that a lot of people are saying it's the next big inequality issue globally, but also we know this from basically the sort of range of technologies that are used. First of all, the fact that the more air conditioning there is, the classic solution to this, the more it's contributing to the problem that is already being caused, that's already causing it. But what is even more is that we know that in contexts where there is better adaptation to this issue, in fact, there is less reliance on air conditioning. There are other systems, other ways of doing it. So I just want to show you a case of Morocco, where you, in fact, and Mediterranean cities also often built like this, where it's how cities are organized through shading, through circulation of air, through green space and so on, that makes a huge difference in reducing the need for air conditioning. So this is happening now in a context where the need for space cooling in this context is becoming ubiquitous. So we need to think about space cooling as an integral part of the urban planning landscape in particular. And this is also a place where the tension among different solutions starts to arise. And again, hopefully that's something we will start talking about, not just technologically driven versus non-technologically driven, which is something that I mentioned before, but also within that space of non-technologically driven, whether you go with nature-based solutions, whether you do go with building-based solutions and so on, then becomes really interesting. And again, we have seen that in working in the private rented sector, that often some of these nature-based solutions in cities then tend to cause further inequalities by creating, for example, gentrification in particular areas. So it's actually quite a complex challenge that goes even way beyond cooling. And here again, what's really, really interesting and very important is how we need to learn from informal practices in countries where the need for space cooling across the whole of the population has been common. And I think, looking at what happened in the heat wave this summer in England, the number of ridiculous solutions I heard as someone coming from the Mediterranean, the number of ridiculous solutions I heard to how to keep cool, I could give you a whole lecture about that, but I won't. It just tells you that there is, in a lot of context, there's simply no adaptation, and there needs to be a lot of learning. And it's a reverse situation to what is a common dynamic, whereas often be the North teaching the South. Now actually is a slightly different dynamic of the South of Europe teaching the North about a lot of these solutions. I won't go into these slides because I'm realizing there's not much time left. But I just want to say a few more things around this informal issue, that when we think about demand for cooling, and particularly in the context of energy, we need to think about it as something that is materially and socially constructed. And here in the social aspects, you have living standards, expectations and practices, how we participate in society, social status, well-being, all of these things. For example, in NPOR, we've been seeing them a lot in the private sector, but also the material construction of dwellings and technology, spatial location, and so on. What is really important here is that a person can be cooled in more than one way. And this involves both adaptive, but also neighborhood level measures. A paper that we published was led by my colleague Harriet Thompson at the University of Birmingham, and with a number of colleagues. We actually showed what that vulnerability to excessive indoor heat means, and that it involves both the capacity to adapt, both the sensitivity to harmful consequences, but also the risk of excessive indoor warmth. So there's a lot of factors that one can influence when talking about this vulnerability in the context of social justice. And in a paper that I recently published in the journal Antipode, I talked about some of the different modalities of space cooling that we can imagine. So the very classic way is, of course, to cool the indoor environment of a private home, but it's not the only way. In the long term, you could be thinking about what we call non-equilibrium thermodynamics, which is built environment measures. You can talk about adaptive thermal comfort. You can talk about person-level heating or cooling solutions, but also community-level solutions. All of these things matter versus the classic indoor-outdoor. Not to say that the classic private home solution is not valid. I'm just saying there's a plurality of solutions that exist out there. So this paper I'm happy to share if someone needs it. So I've rushed through this, and I appreciate that might have been a bit fast, but hopefully we'll have a chance for discussion, and I don't want to take up the time of our respected speakers. Just want to really highlight three things. First of all, it's a complex challenge that combines climate, building, and socio-demographic aspects, that we can provide cooling solutions beyond air conditioning and indoor enclosure. So we need to think about that whole panoply of solutions. But also, with regard to energy poverty, it's embedded in how not only the classic dimensions of energy poverty, incomes, prices, efficiency, and so on, but it's also embedded in how we choose to cool our settlements. And unfortunately, that's not enough. That's not sufficiently recognized, despite the rapid expansion of this problem. So here's just a few links, and I should also add our link to the energy poverty dashboard, energypoverty.info or energystudies.net. These are all links that will take you to our work, and I'm also available on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation and giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and nearly keeping the time. That's super. And this broad overview, so, and also to show that's not only South or Eastern Europe, for example, being affected, but for example, you had the example of Poland, so struggling with summer energy poverty. And it's not only the last years, but it's a longer time ago. That's, I think, very important when putting the focus on summer energy poverty, so the geographical focus. So the second point is, I think what I really like is so that we from the north or from the Central Europe, we learn from the south. And we also in Germany, we experienced some ridiculous cooling measures, very expensive, very short term, and not without any impact. I think that's very important. And so this also the scope, it's not only technology, so it's beyond, it's policy, it's behavior, it's adaptation. And so I think what you have shown is that we have already information, which is important. So you did publications, and we are happy when you share the links, and we are looking forward to the discussion. Yeah, so more people are joining our event, Summer Energy Poverty Thinking Outside of the Box. So we had our first input of Stefan, and our next session is we have prepared a very short interactive session where you can also share your coping strategies on heat waves, how you would deal or how you can deal or you did already with summer energy poverty. Danai has shared a link. We work with Mentimeter, and I ask you, dear participants and also speakers, so to go to Menti to use the code you have, and you add on the board what are your strategies to face with heat waves and with summer energy poverty. And for this session, for this exercise, we have 3 minutes to work on that and to think about useful strategies on energy poverty and heat waves. If you have any questions, please let us know in the link, or also address it to Danai or to Georgi.
So I shared the link in the chat as Katerina mentioned. Thank you very much. And I think you can also see the QR now in the screen. I'll leave it for a couple of seconds, and I'll show you the board as you write your results.
So here we see the first ideas coming in. We wait 2 more minutes, asking you to put in your coping strategies for dealing with heat waves and also with summer energy poverty. What could be done here? So we have seen our word cloud already. Very different categories of activities. Okay, so thank you so much so far for your input about your ideas, how you cope with heat waves and with summer energy poverty. We're still you're ongoing to insert your ideas. In the word cloud, we see ideas, trees, planting trees, which is a midterm and long-term activity. It's also to work with fans, window shutters, so to have shadow, to close the window, to stay at home. So it's really very diverse. So it's technology, it's behavior, it's nature-based activities. So it's a broad range of coping strategies, and it shows that so many of us, so we have ideas what we can do, what we did, for example, in the last months when we experienced heat waves. Would any of you, of our speakers, would you like to comment on the strategies before we go ahead with our program?
Maybe one thing interesting, I see that it's mentioned white painting, and just before we mentioned learning from the South, the global South, and I think it's something we see more and more in Europe, like painting roofs in white, and it's already done in South, in Africa, in some areas. So it's quite a good example.
Yeah, thank you very much, Julian. Any more comments? Resilience, that's very important. It will be a result of all our activities to be more resilient, which is our overall target to achieve that. Okay, super, thank you so much. I think it's a very nice documentation what can be done, our first learning, and maybe if there is time we can check if all the activities are useful, but to me they seem very crucial and useful. And we go ahead with our program because we have our fantastic speakers with a lot of experience on poverty and summer energy poverty. And we go ahead with Carmen Sanchez Guevara. And Carmen, she has a PhD in architecture, and she's a lecturer at the School of Architecture of the Polytechnic University of Madrid. And her research focuses on energy poverty from the perspective of the right to habitability and thermal comfort in housing, what is very important. She's currently working on 2 European funded projects focused on this topic, and Carmen, you will report about the project Cool to Rise, aimed to improve summer energy poverty conditions of vulnerable households. And what we have learned from Stefan already is that city planners and architects are very important stakeholders to face with energy poverty, and we are looking forward to her input raising summer energy poverty awareness to reduce cooling needs.
Thank you very much, Katarina. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Let's start with the beginning. Okay. So I would say first, thank you very much to this great event for having us, for hosting this session, which we think it's very important, starting talking about summer energy poverty. I'm here, as Katerina said, to speak about Cool to Rise project. This is a project that started more or less 1 year ago, but for you who listen to this session, you know, when you have an European project, you're working on that for a long time till you get the funds. And we were talking about the summer energy poverty from the southern European countries. We started thinking some years ago, okay, winter energy poverty is mainstream now, but we should start worrying about what's going on in the southern countries and what's going on for the next years, also in the northern countries. Our project is called Rising Summer Energy Poverty Awareness to Reduce Cooling Needs. its name plays with this idea of culturize, like introducing the heat culture in population to stay cool. The coordination, we are dealing with it from the Technical University of Madrid, but we are several partners from, as you can see in the map, from Southern Europe with a bit of experience on coping with heat, and we will be delivering this project for the next 2 years at least. Which are the main objectives of this project? As it says there, Culturize aims to reduce the incidence of summer energy poverty among European households by improving their indoor thermal living conditions and reducing their energy needs during the hot season, which in turn will reduce their exposure to heat and heat-related health risks. Here I have to say, even though I'm an architect, the European call was not aimed at intervening in dwellings, like what would be the perfect intervention, energy retrofitting, but on working with households. So that's why we focused on that. I want to make it clear, because I think from what Professor Wójcikowski said before, it is incredibly important to work on the city, but also in this project we are focusing on communities and on households. We wanted to set the common framework on summer energy poverty, as we think there's not a clear and a common methodology to measure this type, if we can say that, this type of energy poverty. We wanted to define solutions to tackle summer energy poverty. We wanted to train summer energy poverty agents. It's important to train technicians to work with these specificities of energy poverty. We have the great challenge of intervening on more than 7,200 people. We wanted to incorporate the gender perspective, which we will have time in another session within this USEF to talk about that. But we had conducted some projects before in which we checked that summer energy poverty has a gender inequality as well. And well, as any European project, we wanted a high level of dissemination. So what are we doing? Because this session is focused, we wanted to talk about which solutions we can propose from the European projects we are developing right now. First, we are delivering workshops on energy and heat culture from our epidemiologist colleagues, those who study the impact on health of these heat waves. We know that heat culture is useful, and it has its impact in reducing the summer deaths. So we are working with that. First, considering which are, as we made with the Mentimeter, we check which is the knowledge of the community. This is extremely important, how they cope with heat and how they can share with others their knowledge. And then we complete the gap if we see they need some more help, or we can give them some more advice. We are also working on energy bills optimization. This could be like a general solution. It's useful for summer and for winter, but we are working on that as well. And we are also delivering what we call the Cool Kids playrooms. We wanted, as we had this gender perspective, and we consider that women are in many cases more affected by energy poverty, we decided that the way to incorporate them in the workshops was facilitating their participation. And in many cases, women are in charge of children at home. So a key strategy to incorporate them in the project was proposing like some playrooms in parallel to this workshop. So the objective is not reaching the kids, but facilitating the participation of their main carers. And once you have kids there, well, let's do something useful with them. So we are working with very useful books and building with them some funds and talking with them about energy poverty. Here's a great book made by our colleagues from Alianza de la Pobreza contra la Pobreza Energética. We are also delivering basic kits to cope with summer heat. We are doing some sessions to explain with type of kits we can deliver, and households freely, they choose what they will use more, or what they think it's more useful for them. So we are delivering blinds, solar filters for windows, these cool towels, fans, light bulbs. There's like a huge variety of options, and after summer we will check how useful they were. And something we think it's quite innovative in this project, we propose, it was quite risky, but I'm very happy to share with you some images. We proposed summer climatic shelters for summer. We wanted to work with community. I just remember we didn't have money in the project specifically to a huge transformation of the public space, but we thought that we could work with the community and do something like a collective plantation with some help. So here I have some brand new pictures, because we made it last week. It was super successful, the work with the community. You can see people just making new plantations. We incorporated to this space the community usually uses for because they don't have more parks near their dwellings. So we proposed these shadings. We bought also a tree and we planted it. So it was a way to work with the community, to transform, hopefully, a little bit the ideas of the community regarding public space, and also to create a shelter for them during these hottest days. And here I have, let's see if we can see I don't know if you can hear it, but it doesn't matter, but you can see how it was delivered, and there were kids and there were mothers, and it was quite interesting and successful, and yeah, you can see the whole community transforming a space for them. I'm sorry. And finally, another solution for these extreme summer temperatures, we are working on some sort of heat wave alert system. Now we're delivering it throughout WhatsApp, and but it depends on the partner of the project and the country, of course. But we are, if they want, if households participating in workshops, they join us, we send them a text message when it's coming a heat wave, so they can be aware that something's going on. So they should keep at home, be at home, or take cool drinks, like basic recommendations. We send them via WhatsApp in our case. So thank you very much, and looking forward for the final debate we will have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for sharing the experience of the project Kulturreis and all these very practical approaches what you have shown. So empowerment, different target groups, also including kids, for example, and also creating own spaces. So it's a small bottom-up city planning, for example, and also sharing the information. I think that's very interesting and very successful. And it's a very broad range what can be done and what could be upscaled and also repeated. Thank you very much. And I would also motivate you, dear participants, also to raise your questions in the Menti. Danai shared the link again, and you can address your questions here in the Menti tool. And after our inputs, we will go through the questions and will answer them. Thank you so much. Okay, so coming now from this very concrete project, Cool to Rise, reported by Carmen, I welcome Marina Vervesi, and also talking about a concrete project and about an approach. Marina graduated in chemistry, and in the last 10 years, she has been working on the social problem of energy poverty. So we have seen and heard so far that energy poverty has many dimensions. So now the input of Carmen, what I liked also, of course, was the gender dimension. And Carmen, what she did is also testing models to address citizens to better advise and support them, because we know that's also a lack, so that really we reach the people who need the access to information and to all the resources. Marina coordinated the Horizon 2020 project Assist, and she is involved today in different European projects on energy poverty, including the European initiative EPA, Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. And this year in 2020, she founded the nonprofit association Rete Assist, aiming to consolidate and scale up the work started with Assist to create a national network of stakeholders dealing with energy poverty in Italy. Marina, we are looking forward to her input on Rete Assist policy recommendations on tackling energy poverty and the results of the Assist project. The floor is yours.
Katerina, thank you very much for all your introduction, and thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure to be here in such an important meeting to present the work of Rete Assist and to talk about summer energy poverty, which, as already Stefan and Carmen have anticipated, it's a growing issue, and we really need to tackle it from different perspectives. In the meantime, I will share screen, okay, so that we can have the presentation. Okay, so hope you can see it properly. And yes, Rete Assist is a newly born non-profit association. Let me just spend a couple of words to introduce it. It was actually born in March 2022, and the aim of Rete Assist is to keep up the work that we launched within the H2020 project Assist. The aim is to bring together all the type of actors, both as stakeholders, public, private, institutional, private actors, all different type of actors, but especially what we call the HEAs, that is the household energy advisors, which in Italy we call the tutor for domestic energy, TED. And what we realized on Assist is that these operators who have undergone a specific training on energy poverty and are the ones who are directly in touch with the people in energy poverty. So we are really at a very, very local level. These are the people who can actually provide the support, the advice, and all that type of assistance needed to tackle both energy poverty and more recently, the summer energy poverty. So Rete Assist was born with the idea of increasing the capacity and the knowledge of all the members and to promote collaboration and synergies. Of course, it was something that came from the ISWR, who is the Italian company that coordinated the ASSIS project. So it's a sort of follow-up of a European project, and this shows how successful European projects can actually be. As I said, our idea is that to tackle energy poverty, we really need to go on a very, very local level. And there are a lot of problems on the social dimension. People are afraid of saying they are in these conditions, of speaking out loud what could be their problems. And usually they're able to do so with somebody they really trust and somebody with whom they have a direct link. So the idea of Rete ASSIS, of ASSIS, was to work with these operators and to train them. So what have we been doing recently on the issue of summer energy poverty? Well, of course, we collaborate with Carmen on the Culturalize project. That's not as Rete ASSIS, but as ICEWAR. So thanks to the synergy, we have been able to integrate the course of the training of our operators also on the summer energy poverty issues. What we had was a course on energy poverty, which was already quite an innovative topic. But now, thanks to the Culturalize, we were able also to follow up on the training and to integrate also the summer energy poverty issue, and to have what Carmen already introduced as the summer energy poverty agents. What we realized also on the Culturalize is that we can have a very strong impact if these agents have a way to give advice on a peer-to-peer level. So what we are testing now here on Culturalize is not only to use social operators as agents, but also to train people who actually live in the households we are addressing with the project, so that they can provide advice to their neighbors. It's not the agent or the social operator, but it's your neighbor telling you to close the blinds, to all the advice that we saw before on that very interesting exercise. So what we've been doing on Rete ASSIS is mainly the training, the networking, and preparing resources and tools to support our agents, summer energy poverty agents, in their daily work with the people in energy poverty. And what we realized is that also simple advice can be very, very helpful. At times it seems weird, but not everyone are aware that to close the blinds during the heat, or to open the windows at night to freshen the indoor temperature. So some very what we would basic advice is really important. And on top of that, we've been preparing also resources that the energy poverty agents can use to promote advice, such as videos, fact sheets, guidelines, or other things like that. I will use my last 2 minutes of the presentation to be a bit more specific. Now, we are based in Rome, Italy, and from Stefan's map, it was down in the south with bright red colors. So we are sort of used to heat waves, but nonetheless, in the recent years, these heat waves have definitely become more intense. I remember some summers when we were actually wearing a sort of pullover, but now absolutely no way near that. And so there is actually the need to take action on summer energy poverty. Just to show you how the temperatures have increased, the two top lines are the ones of this summer, the 2022. And the other summer, the 2015, that was famous for the heat peaks that were actually reached. So if this is a growing trend, we really need to do something on energy poverty. So just to summarize and to end, some of the things that we've learned and we are planning to do, or we are actually already doing. Collaboration with the health ministry or other health organizations to reach out to people. I learned, thanks to the Culturais project, that there is a campaign from the health ministry to sort of launch some summer alerts, heat waves alerts, which are also given through the news, so they are very widely disseminated, but it's important that people are really aware of these alerts and react as according to the advice. What we would like to do is to train also these health operators on the summer energy poverty issues, and this is something that we would like to launch in the coming year, so as to be ready for the next summer. Definitely the idea of having heat waves dedicated via WhatsApp or other more specific channels, not only the national news, can be very interesting, and this is something we would also like to take to test and see how it goes. Use our trained operators to provide some services so that the people, the most vulnerable people, can stay at home and do not actually need to go out. And then other advice and interventions that Carmen already went through. So as I said at the very beginning, there are a lot of issues. This is only a list, definitely no way near an entire list of advice, but there are a lot of things that we can actually do without needing to use the air conditioning to tackle summer energy poverty. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing all the others.
Thank you very much, Marina, for your input from the perspective from Reti Assist and also the Assist project. So the focus also on collaboration and synergies, which is so important for all the different actors, and also the one focus on health, so to see the age and health and gender, what mentioned by Carmen also, and here to train medical staff, which is very important. So thank you so much. And again, so please put your questions in the Menti. We have some questions, and now we go ahead, and I ask our speakers to keep the time, to have at least enough time for our discussion. And we go ahead with Victoria Pellicer Cifres from talking about the well-based project. Victoria is energy officer at Las Naves. It's a social innovation agency of the city of Valencia. And she has professional and academic experience on energy poverty at municipal levels. Very important partner, because we talk about city planning, urban spaces, so the municipalities are very important partners. She's involved in different projects relating to right to energy and has a long activist career in the field of energy cooperativism and energy transition. Victoria, we are looking forward to the input about the well-based project, health-focused approaches to tackle energy poverty.
Thank you very much, Katarina. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting session, and because I'm learning a lot. So thank you very much. Could you see my presentation? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, well, I'm Victoria Pellicer. As Katarina said, I'm working at the municipal council in Valencia. Valencia in Spain is a city near the Mediterranean, where we have very hot summers. So this topic is very relevant for us. We from Las Naves develop several projects on energy poverty from the municipal point of view, and well, in fact, I'm been invited here to this session to talk about our well-based project, which is a project linked on, which is a project on energy poverty, but seeking to make evidence about its impact on health. So today I will bring to this session some ideas from our project, but from the health perspective.
Victoria, do you want to use the presenter modus just to let you know if you want?
It's okay now? Sorry about that.
Yes, we can see now full screen.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I was saying, I will talk about from the health perspective. When I talk about health, or when we talk about health, we want to reinforce the idea that health is more than not having any absence. It's a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It's more than not being cold or not being hot. It's important to remark this, and we all know that there are existing evidence, scientific evidence of the impact of energy poverty on health. This we all in this session we know it, that energy poverty impacts on your general health, physical health, mental health, your chronic diseases, increases higher mortality, etc. So having said that, what I wanted to bring to this debate today were these two very simple ideas, which are based on the theoretical framework of well-based project. The first idea is that where and how we live affect how energy poverty impact on our health. This is why I will talk about what we say the social determinants of health. And the other idea is obviously that we need strategies in all those determinants that affect our health. Let's say that the strategies for dealing with energy poverty, we need to think them from a more holistic perspective. So the first idea, where and how we live matter. Here you can see on the right a map of the city of Valencia and a very common line of the metro of Valencia. You can see inequalities on life expectancy. Inequalities about 6 years of difference depending on if you live in one place or another of the city. So why where you live matters. For that, we on Well-Based Project, we use the socio-ecological model, which is this rainbow that I present on the slide. And on the rainbow, the socio-ecological model says that, well, it's okay that there are some constituency factors like age, biological factors, etc., that you cannot influence on there, and this affect your health. But there are other factors divided in 4 layers that you can affect them and they impact on health. So we've brought this framework from health literature to the scope of energy poverty. And well, we see that, let's say, individual life factors is the first layer. Affects if we have a non-healthy lifestyle, what we eat, what we drink, if we have a sedentary behavior or not, this affects our health. So if we put as the lens of summer energy poverty, we can imagine that if what we eat and the time we spend outside or inside home and how we rest, it affects our health. So we can directly see how summer energy poverty can affect our health. Because some energy poverty does not rest properly, etc. Cannot eat as healthy as should desire, etc. The second layer is our level of social capital. Let's say our social and community networks. If we live somewhere where we are embedded in some energy and some community, and we have this mutual support, we have friends, we have someone who we could ask if we have some problem. We are an aged person, but we can ask someone to go with us to the beach to get some air fresh or so on. This also affects our health, okay, the level of social community. So we can see that people living in energy poverty who are still isolated or are not able to, don't have, can go with them to somewhere, to the sea, for example, can also be affected, are affected also to their health, sorry. Then the third layer is maybe the most obvious we think about when we think about energy poverty, which is the living conditions, but living and working conditions, okay, the housing conditions. If you live in efficiency houses, if you don't have air conditioning, if you don't have a good efficient house, but also with your employment, if you have precarity of working conditions, let's say if you riding outside at 42 degrees. So this also has an effect on your health. And the fourth and last layer is about general socioeconomical, cultural, and environmental conditions. Here there is a very direct link with summer energy poverty because it's about climate conditions, temperature, high humidity, etc. But also natural environment. If you live somewhere with green areas, if you can find a shadow near your house, if you have difficulties or not to access to drinkable water, if you live in a walkable city, for example, all these also affect to our health. So this was the first idea, and the second is that what we are trying to do on Well-Based project is to define a program with interventions in all the 4 layers. Let's say that the idea here is that coping strategies for dealing with energy poverty are needed in all these 4 layers of social determinants of health. For example, we have talked a lot about most of them in the previous presentations, which is perfect, and also on what you mentioned on the Menti and the Mentimeter on the first activity. At the individual life level, you obviously can give advice on energy efficiency, but also on healthy lifestyles, etc. But we can also do things in order to promote the social and community networks, to empower people to belong to their neighbors. Or we can do also things in the layer of living conditions, of course, and also working conditions. And here very related also with the ideas you put on the Mentimeter, no, the 4th layer, so we can think about adaptation strategies. You put trees, green areas, blue areas with shadow, access to public spaces where you can be refugee in a heat way, etc. So we can also plan different strategies on that level, and need to plan these different strategies. And just to finish, what we are going to do in Well-Based is we are 7 pilots on Well-Based. We have developed 7 programs with activities in all these layers. They are not the same, and on the 7 pilots they are kind of different, have some commonalities and some differences. For example, this is the one in Valencia we are developing. Some pilots are more focused on address mental health through a specific focus on community building and citizen empower. Others has a budget also to include the structural house refurbishments, etc. And what we are going to do is to develop these programs and measure. We have a very ambitious evaluation framework, measure health parameters. Here are the health parameters we are going to measure. Well, satisfaction with life, quality of life, anxiety, depression, stress, sleep quality, all this. Also, we are going to take measures about the environment and also about the households, the energy consumption, temperature, and humidity. We will be about 900 people in the intervention group with the 7 pilots, but also have a control group who are not going to receive this intervention, but are going to be measured. And well, with quantitative and qualitative analysis and different moments for the measure. And what we want to find is evidences and link of which type of interventions affect and which aspect of health, of people's health and well-being. For today, I don't have evidence to show because we have just finished the definitions of the 7 programs and finished this evaluation framework. Hopefully next year we can show some evidence, but it's true that I can share with you some thoughts for the debate. That what can this multi-level approach can bring us, which insights bring us if we see the summer energy poverty from this holistic perspective? Well, we see it has a multidimensional impact on health. we see that the vulnerability is increasing, is getting more and more, affecting more and more people. We obviously see a direct link with climate change. It's true that also winter energy poverty had direct link with climate change, but here with summer energy poverty, it's even more evident, and we are start talking about adaptation strategies. So we bring to the debate other actors from the policy, from the municipal policy, not just social services or not just energy, but also urban planning, management, environmental, other policies that we need to articulate with them in order to face this big issue about summer energy poverty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for this layers of social determinants, what is very important in the approach of well-based and the strong interlinkage between different kind of health and health impact. And we straight go ahead to our last input. So we have such great information and input on summer energy poverty, and I welcome Julienne Joubert from Energy Cities, and Julienne is project manager at Energy Cities. It's a European learning community for future-proof cities, and so it's very important since we talk about urban planning. He's involved in different projects related to energy planning and heating and cooling, such as the project Hot Maps and developing strategic heating and planning tools to support local authorities, and for example, heating and cooling decarbonization roadmaps. He's also the coordinator of the Horizon 2020 project Power Up. And Julienne, the floor is yours with your input on tackling summer energy poverty. Local public actions can be mobilized. And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I think you can see my screen. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, we are a European network of cities. So we advocate for a change to political and economic governance at all levels. I will not spend much time on that. But our vision is a more inclusive and more local sustainable solution for citizens that cities are working on. And first, I would like to say that, yes, we all need to adapt to the extreme heat. And in fact, this summer, my question was about, should I sleep on the couch or should I sleep in my bed? And I will explain, as my wife doesn't like to sleep with the window open, and she can stand some hot air, while on my side, I need cool air and I need to open the window. So it was either I sleep in the couch, in the bed with my wife, but I would sleep very badly, or I should sleep on the couch in the living room, but sleep very well. Why I'm saying that is that not because I'm too much affected by summer energy poverty, and I'm privileged to have enough space in my apartment to choose, but because I'm in a building which is very old and which is a 70 years building, very not well adapted for heat waves, let's say. And one thing that city can do first is to adapt building codes and local urban plans to adapt building for heat waves. So we already spoke about that, but cities can really define in their local urban plans some measures to reduce the impact of heat waves on people for indoor condition. So it's about orientation of building. It's about using biosourced materials to avoid concrete, for example, is using insulation materials which are more efficient, which are efficient in winter and summer, or is to have shelters, for example, installed in all buildings, or green roofs, for instance. And it's important because building adapted for heat waves should be standard in the market, and people should not have to pay more to have access for that, because we know that vulnerable households, they cannot pay more. So it should become standard, and it's something on which local authorities can work on and do things, and some of them are doing that. For example, in the city of Lyon, the new local urban plan states that a roof should be used either for solar PV or solar heat, or to have green roofs. So really make the most out of the roof. A second thing that city can do is invest in greening public space and reduce use of concrete to improve the urban microclimate. So it's something already said before, but really increasing obligation for property developer to keep some minimal space, green space in their project is really important. And here again, city can increase that. They can expand the surface of green space. And here again, it benefits to everyone, including the vulnerable households, because until now, parks are free for everyone, which is a good thing, and we hope it will stay like that, and not everything in the nature will be subject to the market in the future. So here again, cities can work on. It was mentioned before, but it's really important to increase the level of energy and heat education of the population in general, and city, they can roll out a workshop and program for vulnerable households to acquire this this culture. Here's an example of the city of Cadiz, who works on energy poverty to mitigate it through supporting families in workshops which were co-created also with people from the community to mitigate energy poverty, and they have quite good results with average saving of, for instance, €90 per year for some families. Another thing that city can do is support vulnerable households in accessing green, local, and affordable energy. It's quite important because we say one, for instance, mitigation strategy is to use fan, for example, and fan use electricity. So having access to low-cost electricity, it's important to ensure minimal energy needs, in this case for fans. And city are working sometimes on social tariff, like for example, the city of Cadiz, they worked with their municipal energy company to set up a social tariff. Also city can, via, for example, one-stop shop, support households in changing energy supplier to access to lower tariff or social tariff. Another thing that now cities can do and are doing is developing energy communities to get benefit to vulnerable households. That's the case in the Power project that we are coordinating energy cities, and we are working with different cities, including the city of Valencia, to develop renewable energy projects benefiting to vulnerable households. And for instance, in Valencia, they already had their first energy community successfully launched, which is a collective self-consumption scheme. And Valencia Energy and Climate Agency, which is the agency of the city of Valencia, supported the process, supported the development of the community, but they also took a share in this energy community of 3 kilowatt peak, and this 3 kilowatt peak will directly benefit 3 vulnerable families, which will benefit for the electricity generated by this plant for free. In fact, so it's a way for the city of Valencia to have a social policy which also allows the development of renewable energy, but also strengthening the social link for in addition. So it's something like what cities can do and are doing. Of course, they can be exemplary in their own buildings to foster cultural change. They can also provide emergency measures during heat waves, like communication campaign. It was mentioned before, like alert campaign. So it's all the things that cities are used to do for other type of subject, but they can also do for summer energy poverty. And as we said, summer energy poverty is a justice issue. Vulnerable households are the less responsible for climate change, but they are the most affected. And the conclusion is that the biggest polluters should pay more for the adaptation. And local actors, local public actors like city, they can be a change agent for a just transition if they are provided with the means to do this adaptation in a just way, but they also need the right means. And an energy cities. We published a study recently looking at how many people are needed at the local level in cities to decarbonize the building blocks and adapt it also to the new condition, because we cannot invest twice for decarbonization and adaptation. We do this all together, and we had the result that it will need 214,000 additional employees in cities to decarbonize the entire building block, which means around 16 additional billion per year for local European cities. So they need the needs to act, but they can do it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Julien. With the perspective of the municipalities and the importance of this stakeholder as very crucial stakeholders, and also the workforce, what we need for the decarbonization. I think that's also a challenge, but I think that's very important to show. So we have 10 minutes left. Thank you very much for your input. So it's very broad. We have a lot of input. We have some time for Q&A, and we have some Q&A in our chat, and I will start with one question, which is, I'm in the Mentimeter, and there is one question with the ranking, with this highly ranked, and it's a question for you, Marina, because you mentioned that you do a lot on collaboration and synergies, and you work with many stakeholders here. And the question is if you also include the utility companies in terms of energy poverty, which is also a very important stakeholder. Thanks for a short answer.
Okay, yes, we are launching several projects with utilities. In Italy, some utilities are becoming very aware on the problem of energy poverty and now summer energy poverty, and they are launching social projects to inform and provide support. So yes, indeed, we are starting to work also with them.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's very important, and also important to showcase what utility companies can do, which kind of programs. Great. So I will go ahead with some questions we got in advance of our meeting, because it's also focused on young people, and we got the question from the Youth for Climate Justice in Slovenia, Fridays for Future. And we have 4 questions, and I will read them here, and I ask all the panelists to think about short answers on this very concrete question. So we young people are faced with the inaccessibility of apartments, extremely high rents, and the unwillingness of apartment owners to take care of the adequacy of living conditions of their own expense, poor insulation, non-air conditioned rooms. What measures, policy could be used to improve the living conditions of young people in the context of addressing summer energy poverty? So that is, and I will add the second one. It's quite similar. The first is on measures and policy for young people. And the second, as young people need to study also in summertime, which is often impossible in the dorms or overheated flats, how could adequate common spaces for study learning be ensured, especially when also all the other people affected by summertime energy poverty look for temporary refugee and comfort in public spaces such as air-conditioned libraries? So very concrete questions. Who of you is interested, willing to answer these questions? Then we go ahead with the Q&A. So very concrete on the situation of young students here, concrete in Slovenia. Stefan?
I can briefly say something, which is that I'm very strongly in favor of minimum energy performance standards at the local level and empowering local authorities to do more about this. So what I mean there is that things like licensing of landlords, but also making sure that when apartments are rented out, that there's sort of a decent living standard that they're rented out. These can be regulated locally or nationally. Likewise, with the provision of cool spaces, it's something that local authorities really need to do more of. And it could be like a national regulation where you say that each local authority has to provide a certain amount of cooling space in summer for residents, or even at the building level, that every building has to have that provision, or every neighborhood has to have that provision. So for me, it's all about minimum performance standards. So it's like we have these standards for some elements of energy efficiency and even renewable energy, but we don't have them for cooling. And the other thing I wanted to say, which I didn't really talk about when I was saying earlier in my presentation, is that we need more data provision on all of these things. And data needs to be collected locally, but also nationally. We have very limited information from Eurostat at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, very much. Carmen?
To add some information on what Stefan was saying, I agree that it's in some part related to minimum energy standards, but for some requirements, what we are seeing and what we are starting to think is that we are now within this energy supply crisis, but we think this is not something that will take for 1 year, 2 years. No, we are in about this huge crisis in which we won't have energy to cool buildings, because at this moment you can heat a building. If you incorporate great insulation, it can more or less work as a thermo. so it may work. This is the basic foundations of passive house. But we don't know if we will have the materials to insulate that because of the resource crisis that will be worse and worse within next years. But if we think about cooling in extreme hot summers in the southern European countries, the passive buildings are not enough. And we will need to deploy huge interventions within the cities that cope with urban heat island and reduce. And so this means going beyond the barriers of your dwelling, starting working with outdoor conditions. And furthermore, once we don't have enough energy to keep these small cells for everybody to stay cool at home, we will need to give a collective answer to this problem and start thinking about these cooling centers that has already started working. And here in Southern Europe, usually elderly people tend to go to the mall to stay cool, but we need to deploy these solutions from the public sector, and we are going to, we will need to shift a little bit the perspective and think about how we can propose collective solutions, even outdoor spaces or indoor spaces. But regarding this youth that will need to study indoor, we will have to give them solutions from public spaces and indoor public spaces.
Yeah, I think that's very important. So also to reallocate the spaces. So that's very important. Thank you so much for your answers. So we go ahead. We have here 2 more questions in the Menti. I think that was a question to you, Carmen, when presenting the toolkits of Cool to Rise. What were the toolkit tools incorporated in the workshop, and how long was the workshop? A very concrete question.
Usually the workshops are around 1.5 hours, and they are split. I mean, we have one workshop for the energy bills, another workshop for the energy culture, and another workshop to explain the cool kits we can deliver. These cool kits, we will, if you follow the project, we will have a deliverable with all the specificities and all the kits we think are useful for summer. But I show a glance in the presentation. These kits were based on blinds, window filters, fans, light bulbs, these cooling towels. So there's a huge variety on these cool kit tools. But if you're interested, just send me an email and we will send you the details on these kits.
Okay, thank you very much, Carmen. I think you find your details on the project webpage, so thank you very much. And a last question is, it was on Victoria, so because it was a strong linkage between energy poverty and health, and it's mainly, so energy poverty will impact your health, but how is it vice versa? For example, that poor health also can lead to energy poverty if you maybe become unemployed, or is that both directions?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for the question, because I didn't say it, but the causal relationship it works in two directions. Yes, it may be that energy poverty affects you on the health, but also the opposite, that your bad health, let's say, may you enter in the energy poverty vicious circle.
Okay,
yes, definitely.
Okay, now it's 3:30. So here we have one more question, and I would skip our round, what we have planned to all speakers to be on time, because I think we have a lot of information. And so let's go ahead with the last question: how to press for more ambitious goals on the national level, and any thoughts about financial mechanism to support the renovation wave? Wow, what a question. I think that's very broad. So first one, so how to press more ambitious goals on the national level? Who of you would like to bring in a short answer? Stefan, is it a new hand or is it an old one? So, Carmen?
I would say that we need to invest a lot to get the poorest and the most difficult to reach, and this needs investment for the social services to proactively get to this population. And also, at least, for example, here in Spain, these funds are partially funded. It means you get like the 60% of the total costs of the renovation of your dwelling. But if you are within the first 2 deciles of the income level within your country, you cannot make any investment, even though you receive like an extra to retrofit your dwelling. So we need a great effort to get the hardest to reach. And we need to understand, this is like with what Victoria was saying, this is a health issue. When we talk about thermal comfort, it's not luxury. We're talking about people's health.
Thank you very much. Marina, last input.
Yes, I just wanted to add something on the financial mechanisms of the renovation wave, because it's not only important to have the financial mechanisms in place, but it's very important when we speak about summer or energy poverty that these renovation financial mechanisms are actually known and used by these people, because what we've been witnessing in the last year is that there are some financial mechanisms to promote the renovation and the requalification of the buildings, but these have not been used by people in energy poverty for different reasons. So it's not only a matter of putting them in place, but also of getting that particular target to use them. So it's both issues are extremely important.
Thank you very much.
How to do that, I don't want to go into that.
Yeah, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. Dear participants, thank you very much for your questions. So I have to admit, we have a lot of input and information. It was a very dense program, and it was also overall target was really to put summer energy poverty higher on the top of the priority list, which I think is what was the aim of our webinar. We see that we have manifold answers, approaches from different perspectives. So we are aware that we have to go beyond technologies, even if we have the technologies. It's not only a question of funding, it's a question of adaptation, of behavior, of a lot of dimensions. And so I think we don't have a very clear answer because it's very multidimensional. It's not possible what you all have shown, but we have seen that many partners, many stakeholders, research, municipalities, authorities, NGOs, so they are working on the topic, and it's important to go ahead and to show how crucial is the situation, and it will go and it will continue. And so sorry. So thank you very much for your contribution. Thanks for your patience. And so the webinar was recorded, so you can also have another look on it. And if there are any questions, please let us know, and we are happy to answer them. And I know there are more sessions within the Energy Week on energy poverty, and maybe you are also interested to join this sessions. Thank you so much. All the best, and yeah, see you maybe in Brussels. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Pleasure.